Even before it began, the Chicago March against NATO G8 traveled a long road. It was a journey for the right to march, waged against the mayor who saw the First Amendment as a threat, and who flexed police state muscle to try and stop it. The marchers wanted to give Afghanistan war veterans the chance to return their battle medals to the NATO generals, and to tell NATO they were ashamed of what they did as soldiers for imperialism. Weeks before the march, the Coalition Against NATO G8 War and Poverty Agenda held a press conference.
We encourage everyone to join us in the streets. Do not let the city of Chicago to intimidate you from exercising your First Amendment rights. We're going to be very proud to have the people who have sacrificed more than any other Americans leading our march. Iraq Veterans Against the War will be proudly leading our march down to McCormick Place to turn in their medals, and we're very proud to stand with them.
They talked about the city's refusal to grant a parade permit that would enable them to get near the NATO summit.
The last time I checked, the First Amendment had not been annulled in the city of Chicago. And so people should feel free to walk the streets. As I said in my earlier remarks, do not let the city of Chicago intimidate you from exercising your First Amendment rights. It is your right to walk down the street. It is your right to congregate so long as you're not blocking other people from going about their business. And then that's what the Occupy movement has been about from day one. And in spite of that, the city of Chicago and cities around the nation, orchestrated, I might add, from at the federal level, have blocked this and forced occupiers to face ridiculous charges. That much said, I think the bottom line is this. If there are any violations of free speech rights in the city of Chicago during the NATO summit, I place the blame not just at the doorstep of our mayor, but first and foremost at the doorstep of President Obama. Because one telephone call from President Obama would clear up the situation with the nurses' permits, would clear up any other permit situations. This president has got to say to Rahm Emanuel, cut the hell out, guarantee people's First Amendment rights in the city of Chicago, and that's it.
Then the National Nurses United held a press conference to discuss the city's attempts to prevent them from having their rally in Daley Plaza.
We're here today in response to the 11th hour change by the city. We were notified yesterday afternoon that our legal permit of nurses from around the world coming together is being moved out of Daley Plaza in the Loop to Petrillo Band Shell, and we're here in response to that.
Just as we the NNU would be protesting the poverty agenda of the G8 nations, whose interests NATO militarily enforces.
Rahm Emanuel is a proponent of automated high-frequency trading, and he's been lobbying on behalf of the financial industry. He supports the very high-risk practices that nurses seek to stop. High-frequency trading is responsible for spikes in gas prices, food prices, and many others.
We think this is really about wanting to move nurses outside of the public eye so that our message attacking Wall Street and actually countering the position of the G8, they want that silenced, and we're not willing to be silenced. We, on the other hand, believe that Wall Street is the cause of the crisis, the cause of suffering, and should be made to be part of the solution.
And Wall Street is impacting hospitals.
Wall Street is very directly impacting hospitals and directly impacting every patient we come in contact with. I mean, everybody's got a family member out of work, or is uninsured, or has a child who's drowning in student debt. People are having a very difficult time of it right now, and Wall Street is the cause of the crisis and needs to be the solution.
Well, you know, the city is essentially saying the location they want for you guys now will actually be better for you, because there's going to be a band shell there, and you're going to have a band, and you know, they're saying this is actually going to be a better thing. There'll be more room and what have you. How do you respond to that?
Petrillo Band Shell has always been an option for us to request a permit there, and it is not where we want to be. We want to be at Daley Plaza, in the heart of the Loop, the heart of the city, relevant, visible, and with people walking by us, not out of the way in a ginormous park that's difficult to get to. We aren't going to have a band. We're going to have one single musician with an acoustic guitar doing an acoustic set. This is not a Rage Against the Machine concert. This is Tom Morello, who's been touring with Springsteen, doing an acoustic set. And he has performed before at Daley Plaza, and it wasn't an issue. The Tribune does a great job today of outlining a number of different events that have been larger than ours, larger than the city claims ours is going to be, that have nonetheless been allowed to be at Daley Plaza.
At last, because of public support for the anti-NATO G8 march, the city gave in.
Go away! We say no way! G8 says go away!
It granted permits for the march to get near the NATO Summit and for the NNU to hold their rally at Daley Plaza. At the National Nurses United rally, Andy Thayer, spokesperson for the Coalition Against NATO G8, reminded the crowd that it reached their goals through a political struggle against the city.
I am so proud of the nurses today. I am so proud of you, because you have stood strong against the intimidation of our city fathers. You may not know it, many of you out-of-towners, but last fall, the city said no one could be rallying on this plaza today, and yet you are here. The nurses, those of us who are in Occupy, had our backs when Mayor Emanuel did his mass arrest against us. You had our back, and you were out there getting arrested with us. And we are so proud of you. We have heard a lot of threats of violence issued by people who should know better. People like Hilliard Hines who are getting big contracts from the city, making money off of these threats of violence, and yet you are here today. My message to you today, my message to you on Sunday is do not let the city of Chicago, do not let the federal government intimidate you from exercising your First Amendment rights. We will be marching on Sunday, 12 noon, over at Petrillo Band Shell. Join us. We need to stop these wars because we know that whoever is in office next January will be a pro-1%, pro-war president. We will be on the streets because that's the only way to stop that. Thank you very much.
My name is Aaron Hughes. I served in Iraq from 2003 through 2004, and I would like to make sure that everyone here in the media has signed in and received a press packet, because we really want to make sure that everyone has...
The Iraq Veterans Against the War also held a press conference.
And we're here in Chicago to take on NATO, an organization that was created to take on the Soviet Union. Now, I don't read history textbooks very often, but it seems to me that that hasn't been around for quite some time. The 3 wars we've had since 1989 have not even been within NATO's jurisdiction. It is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It is not the North Libyan or North Afghanistan or North Kosovo Treaty Organization. But yet we continue having these wars by unelected officials in NATO that do not answer to the people of the 28 countries of which are a part of it.
It's been 11 long years since the NATO-led ISAF mission has begun in Afghanistan, and the countless deaths of innocent children, the massacre of hundreds, and more recently the Panjwai massacre, where 17 innocent Afghans were indiscriminately killed in their sleep. These all indicate the furthered instability, the suffering, and the poverty within Afghanistan. Since the illegal occupation, thousands have been driven to flee their hometowns, to flee to Kabul, where they reside in refugee camps that are rife with disease and violence. These are just further more indications of the failure of this mission. Not to forget the incredible toll that it has taken on the citizens of this country, of Canada, and of other NATO nations.
The IVAW announced plans to return their service medals to the NATO generals at the end of the march.
And today, I'm here to say 2 things. One, we're asking the NATO representatives to come out on Sunday, May 20th, and acknowledge the humanity of the individuals that have served under their command. We are awarded these medals, the Global War on Terrorism medals, from these NATO generals. Medals that represent a failed policy that we live with on a daily basis and that we think about every single night. It's a failed policy that represents a 150% increase in suicide amongst active duty service members. And all we are asking is that these NATO representatives come out and acknowledge us as human beings and accept our medals as we return them to these NATO generals. Our second most important thing to say is today we are reaching out to our fellow service members. Today, we respectfully request that all service members, especially the members of the Illinois National Guard, which I served with, I have fellow friends that are still in the Illinois Army National Guard, to stand down throughout the NATO Summit in Chicago. We ask you to tell NATO generals that you stand with your fellow veterans and the 99% who are demanding justice and reconciliation and for all those affected by NATO's wars.
Finally, the day of the march arrived. The anti-NATO forces assembled at the Petrillo Band Shell in Grant Park to hear speeches and music.
Hi there. How are you doing? I was so excited you will be here and I will be here too.
Bayan USA. We're a Filipino-American alliance.
Okay, are you from Chicago?
No, I'm from New York, but our members are from across the U.S.
Our next speaker is Carlos Montes of the Committee to Stop FBI Repression.
All right, brothers and sisters. No to war, no to NATO. We know that the NATO, dominated by U.S. warmongers, caused mass poverty, misery, and death around the world, but especially among the oppressed people in the Middle East, Asia, Africa, and Latin America. We know the U.S.-NATO war causes mass displacement and mass migration to the rich nations, where we are further exploited by racism and repressive immigration police laws. My family migrated from Mexico. I have fought for over 42 years for equality and the right to self-determination of the oppressed people of the world and the Chicano, Mexicano people in the Southwest. I stand today with you. I stand with the people that NATO and the U.S. government are attacking, such as Afghanistan, Iraq, and Libya, and possibly soon Syria and Iran, but we will not let them do that attack, right?
Hey everybody, CC here from Anti-Eviction Campaign, and we're here to say housing is a human right. Fight, fight, fight. Repeat after me. Housing is a human right. Fight, fight, fight.
Among the thousands who participated were members and representatives of Chicago area unions.
Chicago Teachers Union's leadership body, the House of Delegates, endorsed the protest against the NATO demonstration. And we did it because the NATO agenda of war and austerity abroad has a counterpart in its agenda at home. And the high ministers and officials of NATO abroad have their counterparts at home, and those are the same people that are trying to privatize schools, close community schools, make a day which is longer, which is full of test prep, which is dull and full of drill and discipline. And we oppose that. We oppose the move to corporatize, privatize public school education. We think public school education needs to be well resourced, and we think public school education needs to unlock the humanity of students. There should be art, music, physical education, world language, and right now we're fighting for a fair contract, and it's really not simply about the teachers, it's really about the entire future and the soul of public education, and we see those two fights as being intimately linked.
My name is Jill Stone. I am a Chicago Public Schools teacher. I happen to be teaching at Diet High School, which is one of the schools that is targeted to be closed. It's a phase out, but really it's a closure. Part of the reason I wanted to come here today was because there really is a correlation between the priorities that our government put on adventures overseas, NATO, all the money that gets poured into, these wars that we fought for the last 10 years. All of that could have been devoted to education or infrastructure or even research and development. Really a country that stops investing in its people is really a country that's dying.
We should be investing in our children's future and spending money on health care, helping the poor people in this country, helping to spread unionism, which is a proven method of increasing people's standards of living. And also, we should be concerned about our eroding democratic rights. Why do we have to have permission to protest and to assemble and to redress grievances against our government? It's not right. So again, I'm a union carpenter on a Local 13. I'm here as a rank and file member, and I also have a sticker here for you if you want to see, which I think says it all.
And we're here with a number of members of our local, working with the Occupy labor contingent in this parade and several other international unions, because the priorities of our country need to be turned around. We need to stop spending all the money on the military expenses, supporting a worldwide network of military bases. We need to join the world community and not try to dominate everybody else. Take that money and put it into the needs of the people here, creating some jobs. My group is leaving. I have to get on the march. Thank you, brother. Take care.
And there's a demonstration today in Tehran, Iran.
Finally, some 10,000 marchers began the long walk to McCormick Place, where the NATO summit met.
We march against the obscene priorities of global capitalism. We march to assert our right to protest, even though the mayor has attempted to say that we are the violent ones who need to be worried about, when he's the one who's bringing the warmongers, the ones who actually are responsible for the atrocities and war crimes in Afghanistan.
What we want? Stop the war! 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 What we want? Stop the war!
We march to show our unity with our brothers and sisters who die under the bombs, from the guns, and in the torture chambers of NATO and the United States around the world. While the G8 talks about stability, we know that stability for them and for their system means continuing instability for us, for people struggling to put food on the table who don't know where their next meal is coming from, for peasants in Mexico trying to scratch out an existence growing corn at a time when U.S. agribusiness is flooding the Mexican market with cheap government-subsidized corn. You see these sorts of outrageous, ridiculous kinds of priorities and contradictions played out again and again. We march to show the world that this global revolt hasn't actually skipped the United States.
On a raised platform 2 blocks from the NATO meeting, The return of the medals ceremony began. After the official end of the march, violence breaks out on the street as police club and throw to the ground Black Bloc protesters. The corporate media exploited images of arrests and violence to push out of the news the political message of the veterans who threw their medals into the trees behind them toward the NATO Summit. Let us then listen to what the veterans said.
My name is I served in the Marine Corps, and in January of 2002 I deployed in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. And I want to tell the folks behind us in these enclosed walls where they build more policies based on lies and fear that we no longer stand for them. We no longer stand for their lies, their failed policies, and these unjust wars. Bring our troops home and end the war now. They can have these back.
My name is Emanuel, and I served with the United States Marine Corps. First and foremost, this is for the people of Iraq and Afghanistan. Second of all, this is for our real forefathers. I'm talking about the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. I'm talking about the Black Panthers. I'm talking about the Civil Rights Movement. I'm talking about unions. I'm talking about our socialist brothers and sisters, our communist brothers and sisters, our anarchist brothers and sisters, and our ecology brothers and sisters. That's who our real forefathers are. And lastly, and most importantly, our enemies are not 7,000 miles from home. They sit in boardrooms. They are CEOs. They are bankers. They are hedge fund managers. They do not live 7,000 miles from home. Our enemies are right here, and we look at them every day. They are not the men and women who are standing on this police line. They are the millionaires and billionaires who control this planet, and we've had enough of it. So they can take their medals back.
My name's Maggie Martin. I was a sergeant in the Army. I did 2 tours in Iraq. No amount of medals, ribbons, or flags can cover the amount of human suffering caused by these wars. We don't want this garbage. We want our human rights. We want our right to heal.
My name is Jacob George. I'm from the Ouachita Mountains in Arkansas. I'm a 3-tour veteran of the Afghan War, paratrooper and sergeant, and I have one word for this global war on terrorism declaration, and that is shame.
My name is Rachel McNeil. I served in the military for almost 8 years as a sergeant, and I'm returning this medal today because it's time to restore America's honor and renounce this war on terror.
I'm Jacob Crawford. I went to Iraq and Afghanistan, and when they gave me these medals, I knew they were meaningless. I only regret not starting to speak up about how silly the war is sooner. I'm giving these back. Free Bradley Manning.
My name is Michael Thurman. I was a conscientious objector from the United States Air Force. I'm returning my Global War on Terrorism medal and my military coins on behalf of Private First Class Bradley Manning, who sacrificed everything to show us the truth about these wars.